Hi guys, and welcome to my presentation. My literacy presentation is on queer culture, the origins of a movement. So my purpose for choosing this presentation is to bring forth stories that are hidden in time, kind of pushed back, and a little forgotten. I wish to bridge a gap between history and current times so that we can remember where we've come from and keep in mind where we're going. This literacy presentation connects with me on a personal level because my sister is gay and my sister is married to another woman, happily living in Las Vegas. I have other family members who are gay, and so I noticed that in our Hispanic culture, there are many movements we learn about. We learn about the Chicano movement. We learn about civil rights movement. We learn about the feminist movement, but we don't really know much about the queer movement and how that came to be. It always seems to be a subject that is very hidden, not very talked about. Everybody knows a person who's gay or has rumors of a family member that's gay, but nobody is well informed about gay history, gay community, gay culture. Hi guys, and welcome to my presentation, Literacy of Gay Culture, Origins of a Movement, presented by Veronica Uriegas. So to start off with some perspective, in America in the 1960s, it was very much illegal to be gay. Homosexual acts were illegal in all states but Illinois, and there were anti-sodomy laws. If a person was caught being gay, their entire life and existence was ruined. It wasn't just a fine. It wasn't a ticket. Your life was ruined. This is known as the Dark Ages in queer history. Although this was the era of free love, it was still very conservative. Expectations of people. Men and women were expected to grow up, get married, have children. The man went to work, the woman stayed home. And if you did not fit into that framework, you were outed. You were disowned. You were shamed. If a person was caught in a homosexual act, they would be immediately arrested. After being arrested, they would have their loved ones notified. Their name would be taken down. Their job would be written down. Their address would be written down, and that would be printed in the local newspaper for the whole world to see. Doctors would lose their license. Lawyers would lose their license. If you were in the military, you would get dishonorably discharged. And that was just on a professional level. The family members would be notified. Their social circles would be notified. You would get kicked out of college if it was found out that you were gay. Consequences of it were way worse. Your life was totally ruined. This is also the time where they practiced gay conversion therapy. So being gay was seen as a mental illness, a perversion. So you were either put into gay conversion therapy or you'd be admitted into the mental hospital. Upon being admitted into the mental hospital, you would undergo a series of experiments and treatments. One of them was a pill that they would give them that would have the sensation of waterboarding. It was an actual pill that made you feel like you were drowning. Not to mention there's the lobotomy or the electric shock treatment that they would undergo. They would have devices hooked up to the genitals giving shocks while showing them pictures of homosexual pictures until they were shocked until they no longer responded to them. There were even castrations that were performed. It was a very dark era. So for reference sake, I want to go ahead and explain some gay terminology. Now, gay culture is an ever-evolving and changing movement. There are way more definitions in the gay culture than what I have. What I have is a very basic and brief understanding, and I'm sure a lot of you already know some of the names and meanings of these terms. So to be referred to as being gay, it's a same-sex attraction. Homosexuality refers to men attracted to other men. Lesbian, women attracted to other women. Queer or gay are used as general terms to describe gay community, gay culture. Sometimes men or women will also use it to describe themselves. And heterosexual refers to being attracted to the opposite sex. Now, I just want to notate here, this is not having to do with gender identity. Gender identity is who a person is. Sexual attraction is who they are attracted to. In gay culture, there are many identities and there are many forms of attraction that people will identify as, so it's better to ask before you assume. So in the 1960s, there were many misconceptions about being gay and being in the gay culture. You were seen as mentally ill. You were seen as perverted or distorted. You were actually, the person would actually be classified as a sexual psychopath. And they were the person was automatically assumed to be a pedophile. There were loads of propaganda of videos and advertisements warning against people being around homosexuals. It was very much believed that homosexual individuals were incapable of having a monogamous and stable relationship. We know that that's not true now, but it was part of the propaganda. So in the 1960s, if you were gay and you didn't want to be outed, or you were outed, you had one of two options. You could go about life pretending to be a straight heterosexual and try to live that life, or you could just leave and migrate towards more friendlier gay queer communities. Now, there weren't very many places a person could go, but there were some, and people found out about them because they were usually being advertised in churches to avoid going to these places because they were known as homosexual hangouts. Now, one of these safe places in that time was New York City, Greenwich Village. Greenwich Village was seen as a very progressive community. People were openly gay. People were openly drag. It was a very progressive time in that place. Many people gravitated towards that area. It was a place that a gay person could definitely go underground. What I mean by that is there were plenty of places within the community that were gay friendly. There were gay bookstores that had gay positive reading material. There were gay cafes, gay stores. All of these promoted pride in being gay. So if a person wanted to evade police or evade being found or seen because they were recently outed, they just had to go to Greenwich Village and stick to the all gay shops and all gay restaurants, and that's very much going underground. Straight people wouldn't be in these areas because they were warned to be against them, and usually these areas were very united in the front, that if they saw cops around, because cops would very much set up stings or go in and try to arrest people for being gay. So along with coffee shops and bookshops, there were also bars. And there were plenty of bars that also catered to gay patrons, one of them being the Stonewall Inn. Now, the Stonewall Inn was not a high-class place. Out of anything, it was a low-end bar that was overpriced. They had watered-down drinks, and it was owned by the mob. The mob owned the jukebox. They owned the cigarette machine. However, it was one of the that queer people could go to meet up or have drinks, hang out. They were allowed to, show public affection. They could slow dance with their lover. They didn't have to hide. They didn't have to be ashamed. And that's why it kind of became a cornerstone within the gay community. However, it later turned out to be a hallmark into the actual gay rights movement. Because during this time, a lot of time, cops were going around and they were raiding bars and places, arresting people. And in this point of the year, the mayor was up for re-election, so he kind of noted to the cops that he wanted them to clean up the streets, so to speak. So one night, the cops raided the bar, refused to let people go, and after so much oppression and having to run, a lot of the patrons started to fight back. They started to become angry. They were starting fires. They were trying to bust the door open. They were able to run off the police. And it was quite a little victory, because during this time, all they had known was oppression and shame and hiding. and being turned in and arrested. And finally, that night, they had enough. And so they fought back. The cops left and they won. Now, there was still fear after that night. They were scared that they would close down the bar and that they would never see it again. Luckily, the mob-owned bar was just, they repaired the things that they could. They opened it again for the following night, and the patrons were able to return. The patrons were happy that they could return. However, the cops showed up again and tried to raid the place again. And once again, they fought back. This time, the cops took more people with them. However, the crowd stood strong. They were tired of being pushed around, and some of them were arrested and some of them were disappeared into the mob of cops. But once again, they fought and they were able to run off the cops again. Shortly thereafter, the first gay pride movement was formed, because during both of these events, there was minimal, if any, reporting. To this day, there's still hardly any pictures available from that night. For some reason, this was a big taboo, so you would expect it to be on the front page, and it wasn't. So after many years of oppression and exhaustion from hiding, the gay community decided to come together and have their first march ever. And to their surprise, almost 2,000 people showed up. So from this one night at a low-end bar, it really helped get the gay community movement rolling. And from that is what you see every year when there's a gay pride parade. This was the immediate effect of that. So what does gay culture have to do with literacy? Well, literacy, when I think about it, is the understanding, the knowing, and the comprehension of something. And I think that gay culture is definitely something that we are undereducated in. We see the gay pride parades, but we don't know the history behind it and why it's so significant and why it matters. This is not the only underinformed history of gay culture. Like in 1897 in Berlin, there was the Magnus Hirschfeld, the first gay awareness group ever, and that was back in the 1800s. We can't forget about the neglect that the gay community underwent during the AIDS epidemic and how nobody was doing anything to help because they were gay. There was also the Manchin Society. This was actually operating in 1969, and they were actually a society fighting for gay rights. And it just so happened that this was going on at the same time of the Stonewall Inn riot. That being said, there are still many struggles today that the gay community endures. Healthcare bans, transgender youth bans, repression of identity, not to mention the censoring and the ban in sports and of drag people. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I hope you learned something as well as I did about literacy in the gay community and how important it is for us to be informed and be aware of all these little hidden histories. Even if we are not gay, we know we love someone who is. So it is vital to their safety and benefit that we are all literate in the gay community culture. Thank you again.